Hi, this is Debbie, and I'm so excited to be joining you for Simon Says Stamp's Summer School, looking at the new Teacher's Pet mini release. One of the other things that I'm excited about for the coming school year is that my youngest son is going to be having a male teacher for the first time. Quite often find that in the younger years at school there is many female teachers, and it's so great, I think, for a young boy to have a positive male role model. So for my projects today, I wanted them to have a definite male edge to them. And I'm starting with the Hey Teacher stamp set and the Teacher dies from the new Teacher's Pet release. The main focal point of my project is a blackboard with a little wooden frame cut using the frames dies from Simon Says Stamp. To get that wooden effect to the outside frame, I firstly took some of the khaki card from Simon Says Stamp and the matching ink and inked up the designer wood grain stamp from Hero Arts, and I'm applying the card to the inked up stamp and giving it a good rub over to get a good impression. These are the frames dies from Simon Says Stamp, and it's that label type looking one that I want to work with today. And I'm going to cut out from the wood grain pattern that I've just created and discard the centerpiece that's cut, and then within the die quite often it gets stuck as it does here, but it's easy to remove with a little bit of washi. It's a very fine frame, and I'm using that as my frame for my blackboard. So I also wanted to cut the centerpiece from some black card. I'm going to be using some white heat embossing, so I'm treating the black card with a good coating of EK Success powder tool. You can see clearly how much powder this adds to the card and stops any loose embossing powder sticking where you don't want it. So this is the Hey Teacher stamp set, which I really love, and within that there's this curved World's Best sentiment, which I'm going to mount onto an acrylic block and stamp in Versamark ink. Sentiment nestles in perfectly in the top part of the frame, and all that's left for me to do is to sprinkle on some of my favourite Hero Arts white embossing powder. Having done that, I'll take it off screen and heat emboss it. And once the heat embossing has cooled slightly, I rub over a paper towel over the area where the white powder was from the EK Success powder tool, and that removes that. However, weirdly, I now want to add a white look to the chalkboard effect. And I'm using some unicorn ink here and taking it on with my finger and just dabbing it over the edges, and it gives that authentic chalkboard look, I think. Once you've completed all the edges, it's ever so easy just to take off the ink from your finger with a baby wipe. It cleans up ever so quickly. I'm moving on now to stamping the ruler from the Hey Teacher stamp set, and I'm inking that in Memento Tuxedo Black. This is the ideal ink for when you want to Copic colour. And that's what I'm going to do with this ruler, is just to give a little bit of shading with some Copic colours. I'm using some very rough and ready Copic colouring here, and I've got 3 colours of yellow, and I'm starting with the lightest shade, and I'm not keeping within the lines as I'm going to trim this out. And then I'm going to add the medium shade where the score lines are on the ruler. That's where I thought that the shading would naturally occur, and then deepening the shading just around where the score lines would be for the numbers. And then I'm going to reverse that, going back through from the darkest colour through to the medium colour and then back to the lightest colour. Here I'm just finishing the final blending with the palest colour, really working the colour into the darker areas and pulling that out so that it all blends well. After Copic colouring, I trimmed out the ruler, keeping close to the edge of the lines, and then using a Memento dual tip marker, just ran the brush tip over the edges so that they were nicely finished. I love word dies, and the new Teacher die set from Simon Says Stamp is great. It's got 2 die cuts within it, and this is the more scripty of the 2, and they cut so easily. And this is some lipstick red card from Simon Says Stamp, and they cut so easily. That was just one run through the die cutting machine. I have a Cuttlebug. I didn't have to use any shims, and they come out so well, and you just need to pop out the little pieces that make up the loops of the letters, and you've got a great die cut to work with. It's now time to start putting the main focal point together, and I want to nestle the blackboard piece within its frame, but I also want to be able to mount that onto some foam adhesive, and the frame is very slight, and you certainly wouldn't be able to mount that with foam adhesive on its own. So I'm going to attach it to the main blackboard piece using some washi tape, just by stretching the tape across, catching the frame against the blackboard piece, and I'll continue doing that until everything is firmly in place, and then it's ever so easy to trim washi tape with a pair of scissors and give yourself a neat edge. And this way you get a label or a blackboard frame where you can actually mount it with foam adhesive so that it pops up on your project. I've cut some thin strips of foam adhesive and I've just worked out where they want to be. The ruler is actually going to overhang slightly the label, so I've just placed the foam adhesive in the centre pieces and then mounting that onto the blackboard label. I'm going to attach the teacher die cut to the ruler by dabbing a little bit of Tombow Mono Multi Glue onto the bottom part of the back of the die cut and then dabbing any excess off onto some scrap paper before attaching it to the ruler. Within the frames die set that I was using earlier are two larger frames, and the smaller of those creates a great size of frame which is perfect for the 4-bar cards I particularly like to make. I've chosen a couple of pieces of paper from the basic grey Kelly Perky Mon Ami paper pad, and I've run those through my Cuttlebug. I particularly thought that this graph-type leisure paper with the mustardy kind of colouring stripes on it matched the ruler well from the Hey Teacher stamp set. I'm going to use the two pattern paper pieces to gather together in a casual way. However, I wanted to make sure I got the blackboard frame onto the card straight, so I'm doing that first onto the ledger paper. And then, like I say, trying to get that casual feel as if they've just been clipped together with the paper clip, and you've just got the little blue piece peeping out from behind the ledger paper. Once I'm happy with how they're gathered together, then I'm going to use a little bit of glue runner to keep the two pieces in place. I don't want to put too much on, I just want a little bit in the middle because I want to be able to curl the papers back loosely at the corners. Once the pattern paper's edges are curled, I then added some foam adhesive to the back and attached that to a 4-bar khaki top folding card base. Initially I just attached the panel using the centre foam square, and then when everything was in place I took the backers off the outside edges to keep those in place too. To finish the card I added a couple of wood veneer stars from Studio Calico. I thought they added that masculine touch again. And then to go with my card I cut a couple more of the blackboard frames, and I added one to a lined moleskin notebook, just simply adding it with a little bit of foam adhesive. And then I also found a book called Blackboard Blunders, which is a humorous book of children's silly written mistakes, and I thought another one of the framed labels inside for a book plate would go well there. And that completes my masculine-inspired teacher project. I want to thank you for joining me today, and I'll leave you with one last look at the photographs.